The Ottawa County Board of Commissioners meeting. The date is Tuesday, June 22nd. Our invocation today is by Commissioner DeYoung and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Justin Roebuck. Please rise.
Will you pray with me? Heavenly Father, Lord, we ask a blessing upon all of our school children, Lord, as school's gotten out and kids are home for the summer, Lord. We ask that you watch over and keep them. And Father, we're grateful for the recent rain, for our agricultural community, for our fields and the farmers. Lord, thank you for that. And Lord, we pray protection today for those who serve us in a special way. We think of our fire department people. We think of the men and women of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department. We ask and pray for safety for all those. And Lord, we ask you to be with us today as we make decisions for the residents of Ottawa County. All these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Garcia.
Here.
Mr. Baumann.
Here.
Mr. Zylstra.
Here.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Here.
Mr. Meppelink.
Here.
Mr. Terpstra.
Here.
Mr. Holtfloor.
Present.
Mr. DeYoung.
Here. Here.
Mr. Bergman.
Here.
And Mr. Penske.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Petitions and communications.
I believe we have a presentation from Public Health. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I don't believe our mics are working.
No mics are working.
Well, I'll just be loud. I'm good at that. So I just wanted to kind of give you a quick update on the status of COVID-19 as of today, and a little bit of information about some of the changes that are taking place with regard to the state's mandates. So since the April 2021 peak, positivity rates, case rates, hospitalizations, and deaths have decreased, which is very good news. As of June 17, 2021, the weekly average positivity rate has decreased by 89%. So there's reason to celebrate. From the mid-April 2021 peak down to 2.2%. The 7-day average case rate for Ottawa County has fallen by 97% to 22 cases per million through June 14. The rate of COVID-19 cases detected per day in Ottawa is below 100 and continues to fall each day. These are the lowest percent positivity and case rates in Ottawa over the past year. As of June 21, only 2% of inpatient beds in Ottawa County were occupied by COVID-19 patients, a decline of 91% since mid-April 2021. The number of deaths has dropped over 71% from 7 per week down to 2 per week. Although the COVID-19 pandemic continues to constitute an epidemic in Michigan, based upon current risk levels and the advice of scientific and medical experts, the state has announced that MDHHS epidemic orders requiring specific protective measures are being rescinded as of today. I just want to mention that if you have specific questions about those, I may have to do a little research. All of this information is new. It's complex. There were a number of orders that affect everything from schools to long-term care facilities, and I'd be happy to provide maybe a written summary of that later today or tomorrow if you would like to have that. Things that will no longer be mandated by the state at this time include requirements for masking in the unvaccinated population and restrictions on indoor gatherings in places such as schools, businesses, event venues, and food establishments. Again, this is great news for our community and our economy and the well-being of our residents. As is widely known, the virus that causes COVID-19 is a novel coronavirus. That means it's new, and we will therefore be learning about the long-term health effects for years to come. There's already information coming out about the effects of some of the newer variants and countries that are experiencing outbreaks. We're able to look back on Italy and on Europe and because they experienced a surge before we did, we're already learning a lot more about the impacts on both adults and children, impacts on mental health, and we will continue to learn as we're able to look back and research and do more data collection. We recommend, or even though prevention strategies are no longer required by the state, it is important to continue working together to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our community. We recommend that people get vaccinated and assess their personal and family risk and continue to take precautions, especially if you're unvaccinated. Continue frequent hand washing, minimize participation in large gatherings, maintain distance. Please stay at home when you're ill and wear a mask if you're unvaccinated. These remain important recommendations, but at this time, again, these are not mandated beyond today. Our department will be closely monitoring the health risk of COVID-19 in our communities throughout this summer. We will also be working with our neighboring counties, community leaders, and with MDHHS to make reasonable, low-risk decisions to ensure a healthy community and continued prevention of COVID-19 transmission. For schools, if the same trend continues and in the absence of additional state mandates, we will likely be recommending the more targeted actions used during other communicable disease outbreaks that occur in schools and communities such as chickenpox, mumps, and pertussis. These are our mitigation strategies that we've been using for years and years and years. We know that they work, and if our case rates remain the same, we believe that this will provide a layer of protection for our students and their families. Due to improving vaccination rates and notification from the state on required versus recommended guidance, in May, the health department and schools were able to use less restrictive quarantine measures, which I believe proved to be effective, more flexible, and less restrictive and less disruptive to the learning environment. I feel confident that we will be able to continue this in the fall if the current trend continues. We share a common goal with parents throughout the county that children and youth be able to resume in-person learning in the fall without face masks. COVID-19 vaccines were evaluated in tens of thousands of participants in clinical trials. The vaccines met the Food and Drug Administration's rigorous scientific standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality needed to support emergency use authorization, and over 302 million doses have been given in the U.S. since December 2020. Although we strongly encourage parents and citizens in general to consider this safe and effective vaccination to protect their eligible children and themselves, Michigan does not require COVID vaccination for students to attend school. Some parents have communicated their hesitation, and I want to assure them that nothing has changed regarding parental right to choose whether or not to vaccinate their child. Some information has been circulating. This is just one kind of last thing that I heard as of yesterday. Some information has been circulating in the community about the back to school plan. It's coming out of the state. And I just wanted to provide some clarification from what I know and what I don't know. Soon the state will release this new Michigan Safe School Plan for the 2021 year. It does have about $300 million federal dollars attached to it. The official plan has not yet been released, so I don't even have the details of the plan at this moment. Our team has, however, participated in a webinar that the state presented. I believe it was last week, and there was some information in the webinar. And from what we know, the plan does recommend testing for students in the fall. And there's an algorithm that provides information on how often they're recommending testing, the frequency, and some rationale as to why they're recommending testing. We have been told that this is recommended testing, not mandated like we saw with the school athletic testing requirements. We have also been told that the majority of the money, and I mean, 300 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, it's a lot to us. It's going across the whole state of Michigan, but the majority of the money will not be spent on testing. It will be spent on hiring what the state is calling school health resource advocates. which will be nurses, social workers, and health resource people that will assist schools with some of the testing that is being recommended. Also help with reporting disease and working closely with the health departments. But also it's important that these people are integrated into the school system so that they can begin to address some of the other issues that have been related to COVID in the schools, such as mental health. And I know we've heard so often from our parents that this is a significant issue, and I agree. And I like the idea of having additional support and additional help in the schools to assist with things like mental health. There will be approximately 500 HRAs, they're calling them, to cover over 800 plus school districts in Michigan, which is about the equivalent of one person per 4,000 students. There is much that we don't know still about this plan, but when I am fully informed, I am always open and try to always be transparent. I will share all that I know with all of you and with the community. We will work closely with our districts, and in the absence of state mandates, we will make local, reasonable, low-risk decisions to ensure a healthy community and continued prevention of COVID-19 transmission. Just to wrap it up, I do want to just call out one of my colleagues. Christina Waymink has been an amazing public servant through the COVID-19 event, through our response. She has been our communications person. I'm sure you've seen her on webinars and videos and all of the bulletins that we've been sending out every week to try to keep our community informed. She has been really the mind behind that. And I just want to thank her for her service, for her expertise, for her care, for her dedication. She is leaving to take a wonderful job working for the FDA, and I want to wish her well, but I just want to say thank you to her publicly. She's done an outstanding job, and we will miss her. So I'll open it up to any comments or questions that you may have at this point.
Commissioners, any questions? Yep, go ahead. Matt.
Lisa, just so I understand this clear, as of today, there are no mandates for mask wearing, for sports coming up here in August and such.
No.
There are some recommendations, but as far as the health department being mandated to require masking, that is off the table?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
And then coming this fall,
Mhm.
it's up to the school districts to, because I saw today on the news, Zealand came out and said no mask for summer school and stuff like that. So coming this fall,
Mhm.
it's not you telling the schools, it's going to be each individual school district,
Yes.
correct?
That is very true, Kyle. And, sometimes it boils down to semantics. So much of what was implemented this year was mandated under MDHHS epidemic orders. There still are recommendations. Recommendations different than a mandate. We will be working with the schools. We will still make recommendations. I think it's highly likely that the schools will want to continue working with us on, again, reasonable, low risk recommendations that make sense, that help us manage cases of a communicable disease in the school. We still have to recognize that we're still in a pandemic. Although our numbers are low, we're going to monitor those numbers, and we're going to make sure that whatever we do is always keeping in mind the best interests of our students. And we'll work closely with our schools and superintendents. Ultimately, yes, it is their decision.
Anyone else? Frank?
Lisa, has there been a determination whether students will be required to be vaccinated for COVID?
No. This is a great question, and I know we've received a number of concerns from parents. This is not a decision that can be made by a local health department or even a local board of commissioners. This comes from way high up the chain, generally at the state level. And there has been no decision made. At this point, there hasn't even been a recommendation made that indicates a mandate for a COVID-19 vaccine for the student population.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So Lisa, the bottom line is that much of this is up to the parent
Mhm.
as well, correct?
Yes, yes,
It's the parent's
Mhm.
prerogative to mask or not mask, or
it is.
vaccinate or not vaccinate, correct?
It is. And, I just encourage people, and I know we've heard so often from our parents that they believe that this should be their decision. And it is important as parents to be able to make the best decisions for our children. They know what's going on in their family. They know the health of their child. They know if, grandma lives with the family and may have a chronic illness that, could pose a risk. There's a whole lot of things that should be considered when deciding whether to vaccinate, whether to mask, when to social distance. And so I just encourage everybody to continue to be vigilant. We're not out of the woods yet. We could see another surge, although I, hope and pray that that isn't the case. But again, we'll come together as a community and we'll work together and we'll get through it. And if I can, I appreciate hearing from parents. I appreciate hearing from the community. I've had through the pandemic, not just me, but everybody in our organization has been doing the best we could, to address questions. We can't be in every place at every time. And I know sometimes I've left during or immediately after my comments, but this is only because I have a lot on my plate right now. I always go back and listen to the public comments. I take notes on the public comments. We try to take those comments and address those questions in subsequent publications that we put out. I want all of you to know that I hear you. I'm listening. And we appreciate your feedback. We do. Sometimes we might be on two different sides of science, but I am a servant of this community and I take that seriously. And I have heard and I listen. So.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, go ahead, Al.
How many vaccines is Ottawa County doing a week now, or none? Right? Have you turned it over to the third party?
We have not. Our efforts now are really to do much smaller scale. We call them pop-up clinics. We're still doing those where we are going to events. We were at an event just last weekend, Juneteenth. We are going to mobile home parks and apartment complexes and just setting up maybe a little 2-hour or 1-hour clinic. And we probably get maybe 18 to 20 in each one of those situations. But it's really, really important work because we know that, I can speak for myself. Some people don't have the same resources that I have. They might not have a car to get to a vaccine clinic, or they may not have my English language skills to have a full understanding. And so they need to have access to talk to health professionals and to have, someone show up and provide them with what they need, where they need it. And so we'll continue this. Vaccine is also widely available at all of our pharmacies. It's now available in many cases through your doctor's office. So there's a number of places where people can go. And I think our space now is to really help some of the more maybe underserved individuals that just don't have access in other places.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, the next thing on our agenda is public comment. This is one of 2 times this afternoon we'll have public comment. For the first public comment time, we will have 5. We'll have 5 individuals give comments. We would like you to speak for 3 minutes. You can speak for less than that if you want to, but 3 minutes is your maximum. Give us your name and address, and then come on to the podium and start your speech.
Good afternoon. I am Stephen Rockman from Grand Haven. I have 6 questions for each commissioner, and I'm respectfully requesting a written response. I believe you have my email account from each commissioner, individually respond. And here are my questions. I have 6. 1, can you define critical race theory? 2, do you think it is racist to judge someone based solely on the color of their skin? 3, who is the architect of critical theory? 4, what is the goal of critical theory and critical race theory? 5, can you describe the difference between equality and equity? And finally, 6, this is an easy one. Do you believe America is fundamentally good or evil? Those are my 6 questions, and I look forward, hopefully, to a reply. Thank you.
Wants to go next?
It's really good to see you all again. It's been a while. My name is Rich Houdeman with Consumers Energy. I'm your community affairs manager along the Lakeshore. And just a couple quick things to share. Right now, we have just entered our summer peak rate season. From 2 to 7 during the week, our residential customers will have a bit higher of a rate. We're trying to, and the goal of this is we're working with the Michigan Public Service Commission. And what we're trying to do is really trying to not discourage, but we're trying to lower the use during the peak times of the summer, because air conditioning and a lot of these different types of uses really put a drain on our system, our generation system. And it's a very expensive time of the day to provide power. So what we're trying to do is smooth those peaks out so we don't have to ramp up all of our production, build to that peak. Because a lot of times of the year, we don't really need it. And it's very expensive to keep that all going when it's not needed outside of these maybe 12 days a year when it's really, really needed. So we're trying to work with our customers on that. The good news is that during the off-peak times, the other 19 hours of the day, it's actually less expensive than it was last year for off-peak rates. So if folks can really be mindful of it, they can actually lower their bill versus the summer peak rate actually raising their bill. So, and with that decrease in the off-peak rates, it actually won't, even if folks don't really change their approach too much to their usage, it'll go up $1 or $2 each month if they don't do things totally that much differently. But we're trying, this is a way we're engaging with our customers to try to educate how our business is and how we can lower the cost of providing energy to them. The other thing I'd like to share is tomorrow, we share the details of our integrated resource plan that we also call the Clean Energy Plan. We are required to do this every 3 years by the Michigan Public Service Commission. And it's going to be bold. And we had a bold plan 3 years ago that mentioned some facilities in the area. They'll be mentioned again. And I just want to put that on your radar that about 11 o'clock tomorrow, that release will happen. And so just stay tuned, and we'll be here to talk through those, the new plan. And that's about all I have today. And thanks for letting me have a few seconds. So,
Thanks, Rich.
yep.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Angie Yetzke, and I live at 8367 Stonington Drive in Jenison. Today, I'm here to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, which will help you answer those 6 questions. I worked at a Michigan college for over 10 years. I attended many DEI trainings and voluntarily served on several anti-racism committees where I learned about rank and hierarchy based on skin color. I was taught and believed that I, as a white woman, was an oppressor, and that my Black and brown friends were oppressed because of me and my whiteness, and that those who questioned this were privileged, if not racist. My gender as a woman also oppressed me, but most of you, as white, presumably heterosexual, able-bodied men, were the real enemy. I felt it was my Christian duty to help my white students uncomfortably graduate, questioning whether they or their white privilege earned their honors. This told my students of color the same. Where they fit and what they will accomplish would also be determined by their skin color. I really thought I was doing the right thing, but I now understand that DEI is political indoctrination that divides and segregates based on color and teaches our children to fear and hate. Black and brown skinned parents, you may not see them here, but they are all over the internet demanding school boards stop DEI because, in their words, it keeps their children prisoner in a world of victimhood and despair. Yet we as white people keep speaking for them. Having taught DEI in the trenches, I know that there is racial hurt and that removing the trainings of DEI will cause red flags for you. But I leave you with a very important resource that will help unite us under that flag instead. I will be emailing you a link to the 1776 Unites project to help you see that there is another option to racial healing that will strengthen our country and county rather than tear it apart. This nonpartisan curriculum shows what our freedom makes possible, even in the most difficult circumstances. It celebrates Black excellence, rejects victimhood culture, and teaches children to love their country and respect all Americans. This is what we need in Ottawa County. Unfortunately, DEI is already happening in our schools because you didn't stand up and say, no, not here. Like I believed, teachers that are pushing their politics believe they are doing the right thing. I ask that you get yourselves knowledgeable and then help our teachers get back to actual teaching. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Lauren Nykamp from Hudsonville. I think many of you are of the impression that Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department doesn't cost the county a dime. Since the last commissioner meeting, I've done a little investigating, and I found an Ottawa County action request signed by Al Vanderberg to establish the DEI office. I noticed that the action was listed as non-mandated. So my question is, with the pushback, why are we doing this? It's not mandated. I also noticed that the cost was listed as $0, but then I found a document with your letterhead that says, and I quote, the cost to Ottawa County for the first 5 years is approximately $630,000. It's a lot more than $0. And that dollar figure is growing since we just hired another person for that department. I understand some of the funding was private and nonprofit, but after these first 5 years, Ottawa County is going to be responsible for 100% of those funds. Where are you going to take that money from? I also am a bit confused that Al Vanderberg was the one who requested this, as he is a paid position. Why aren't you elected officials recommending these things? That's what you were elected to do. You just talked a lot about how we're passing the buck on the state for making the rules, right? But enforcement is local. We've seen many counties across the state and country set the bar. Kent County chose to not be a tyrannical government system as Ottawa County Health Department did. Have you consulted Kent County? I ask because some of you, I think that Whitmer's going to come down on you, but has she done that to Kent County? And even if she does, isn't freedom worth standing up for? Ottawa County is thick Republican. We should be setting the bar. We should be number one against this nonsense of masks, vaccines, DEI. We should be like the 2 counties in Nevada that have gone constitutional. So I ask you again to sign that Restore Freedom resolution that was presented to you. Please try to meet the bar because you're missing it by a mile. As many of you have already said this week and last, many of your constituents are unhappy. I believe many of you are sitting back thinking that this is just a blip and your hands are tied. But your constituents are crying out to you on many occasions to educate yourselves beyond what you're being told. Since you're not doing that, you are willfully being ignorant. This is not what you were elected to do. You were elected for more than what you're choosing to do. I know some of you think that we're just going to go away, that this community involvement will dissipate shortly, that no one actually cares about local politics, that you guys might care less about what you're hearing today. But please know that these people aren't going anywhere. Know that these people are willing to stand for freedom meeting after meeting. We are asking you all to stand up and do the job you were elected to do because you are a barrier between Ottawa County and true freedom. We know many of you sitting here have been here for many years, and we thank you for that service. But maybe it's time to do something else with your time. We need bold conservatives. Please stand up.
My name is Harvey Nickel. I taught biochemistry at the university level for 49 years, spending my whole career in the field of science. We were told from day one of this pandemic to follow the science. What has transpired during the past 16 months definitely does not mean following the science. Let me illustrate what I mean. Why was wearing a mask mandated when all scientific evidence shows that masks are not effective in stopping the transmission of a virus? Why is there such a push to vaccinate our children in school? According to the CDC, the survival rate is 99.997% for persons 0 to 19 years old. We should not even think about injecting our children with this experimental biological agent, which is not really a vaccine, but rather a genetic operating system. In fact, why is the so-called vaccine, COVID vaccine, being pushed so hard? It seems like every other commercial on radio and TV is about getting the shot. Businesses are giving donuts and gift cards. Employers are giving monetary incentives. The states are holding million-dollar vaccine lotteries to entice people to get the shot. They're telling us that the vaccine is safe. Is it really? Have you gone to the CDC Vaccine Adverse Effects Recording System, or VAERS site? As of this morning, there are 4,692 deaths reported on the site. This is downright scary because it is estimated that about 1% of the actual deaths are reported on the VAERS site. That means about 500,000 deaths so far. That is more than all the other vaccines over the past 20 years. Remember, the CDC pulled the H1N1 vaccine after only 22 deaths. Now there are numerous reports of abnormal blood clots and myocarditis after the shots. Does it sound like the vaccines are safe? What's going on? We have been led by the officials in our health agencies and in the government. We've been lied to by the officials in our health agencies and the government and the mainstream media. There is a nefarious agenda that is being forced on us, and we are at the precipice of losing our freedoms in this country. We are a constitutional republic, and it is time that we, the people, stand up and take back our country. And we need to start at the local level. Ottawa County needs to stand up against the unconstitutional acts by state and federal authorities like Elko and Lander counties have done in Nevada. Instead of writing Governor Whitmer asking for clarification of authority, you need to write and tell her that Ottawa County is a constitutional county. That means that the local authorities intend to uphold the entire Bill of Rights of its citizens, and that federal and state officials must comply with the U.S. Constitution in Ottawa County. Since all of you have taken the oath to uphold the Constitution, I have a copy for you to read again. I also have the article that you can read that contains the resolution from Elko County.
Thank you, sir.
Next thing on the agenda is approval of agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, real quick. Mr. Ruttman, because it's a one-way conversation, public comment, if you could email us with your questions, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Right. I just want to make sure that the public comment is one way. We can't really answer public comment. If you send us an email, obviously we can answer that. So, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Can I get approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Support.
Been seconded. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zylstra.
Here. Yes, sorry.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Holflor.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman. Motion passes.
Next thing on the agenda is under action and reports, consent resolutions. Mr. Fenske.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make the motion to approve consent resolutions 1 and 2.
Support.
Supported. Comments or questions? And would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske. Yes. Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Holflor.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under action items from administration, Mr. Holflor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Make a motion to approve the general claims in the amount of $5,969,368.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Are From administration,
Right here. Yes.
1.
This one. Sorry. Designate July as the Parks and Recreation Month. Suggested motion to approve the resolution designating July as Parks and Recreation Month within Ottawa County.
Thank you.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Hires.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
From planning and policy, Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the Bend area expansion, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution and grant agreement from the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund for assistance to complete property acquisition as part of the Bend area expansion Phase 3 project in Georgetown Township.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Stearns Creek expansion, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson clerk register to sign the resolution and grant agreement from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for assistance to complete property acquisition of the Stearns Creek expansion project in Robinson Township.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the item of Explorer Trail easement, I move to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the purchase agreement for the Fritt easement as required for construction of the Grand River Greenway Item Explorers Trail in the amount of $1,934.40 from the Parks Millage.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the purchase of the Reindeer 66-acre parcel, I move to accept or reject the purchase price of $700,000 for the Reindeer 66-acre parcel on 128th Avenue in Olive Township. Support.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
No.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
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 Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
From Finance and Administration, Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the fiscal year 2021 budget adjustments, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
Supported.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the 2021 summer apportionment report, I make a motion to approve the 2021 summer apportionment report.
Supported.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Empower Retirement Plan restatement, make a motion to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the plan restatement for county employees 457 accounts through Empower Retirement.
Supported.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer. Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the sheriff's office personnel request, I make a motion to approve the proposal to change one full-time equivalent captain UA or U8A position to a one full-time equivalent chief deputy position at an unclassified U9 at a cost of $4,198.91, and to add one full-time equivalent lieutenant, a U7A position at a cost of $190,184.63. Total cost of the addition and change would be $194,383.54.
Supported.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, regarding the PACE Special Assessment Agreement, I make a motion to approve the PACE Special Assessment Agreement valued at $8,507,001 for the Quincy Place project in Holland Township.
Supported. Been moved and supported. Does somebody want to explain what that's about? For the benefit of our audience, okay? So they know what that's about.
Good afternoon. So just very briefly, the PACE Special Assessment Agreement is a property assessed clean energy program. It's an economic development tool that enhances energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements to a property. We have a developer that has a project going in Holland Township. Is a 154-bed senior living facility that will create 50 to 60 new jobs in the county. They're utilizing this tool that creates a special assessment strictly on that property that will be paid by the developer that will allow them to utilize energy efficient improvements. While this project doesn't use renewable energy, but they could, this is all energy efficient that they're including in this new project. So approving this agreement will allow them to pay for those improvements over time and allow it to cash flow in a more effective way for the developer. And it's important to note that the assessment runs with the land. So should the property change hands, that assessment will remain on that property in Holland Township. The payments will be taken over by the new owner.
And this is a new program that we're making available to Ottawa County businesses as well as residents.
Well, only
Businesses.
residential, only in the event that it's a 4-unit or higher project. We don't have what is termed a residential PACE program here in the state of Michigan. It's commercial only. So if it's 4 units or more, you can utilize PACE. But commercial, yes, nonprofit, agricultural entities can utilize it. And we do have 2 additional interested parties that have contacted us about utilizing it. And it can be anywhere within the county. The county is the jurisdictional boundary of the program. So anyone in any local unit can apply for it.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's my understanding that there's no cost or liability to the county for entering into this agreement with this entity.
That is correct. Yep. It's a zero cost program for the county itself. The developer will pay the cost of capital and fees. A fee will go to Lean and Green Michigan, who we are working with. We are not contracted with, but we are working with to execute a lot of the administrative components of the program. And the developer will pay them a fee, and that will be rolled into the total cost of what the assessment is.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're ready to vote. Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra. Mr. Meppelink.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
And Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under appointments, we have none. Discussion items, none. Report of the county administrator.
And I have nothing today.
Okay. General information, comments, meetings attended, anyone?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Alan, I attended Zealand Public School Board meeting last night to present not a resolution, what's the word I want to say?
Resolution.
A resolution, yeah, that, anyway,
Yep.
for Calda Kuiper for the retiring superintendent. So I
I
just
see,
wanted
okay.
to pass
Good.
that along. So it,
Good, good, yes.
Yes, I want to remind everybody that just kind of save the date, Thursday, July 8. One of our longtime employees here, Captain Mark Bennett, who's been with Ottawa County for 33 years, is retiring, and he's having just a little bit of an open house coffee here at between 1 and 3 with some presentations being made at 2 o'clock. So again, it's a main conference room, and a lot of you folks know Mark Bennett. So if you want to come by, shake his hand, thank him for 33 years of service. That's happening on July 8.
Good, good. Anyone else? All right, next thing on the agenda is public comment. This is a second opportunity for someone to come up and make a comment.
My name is Ruth Stegman. I'm from 156 West 11th Street in Holland. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm here because I've heard a number of people make public comment opposing the DEI office because they say it creates division. I see it differently, and I would like to offer my full support for this office. First, quick couple of comments about what I see as the potential outcomes of the DEI office. I see this office developing policies, practices, relationships, resources, and mindsets that will create a place where everyone can belong, making this county's tagline a reality. Second, if diverse talent is attracted to our county because these policies and practices are in place, then we will have more people who bring a different perspective to the kinds of meetings and opportunities that there are here. So finally, this diverse workforce will demonstrate the creativity and innovation that occurs when diverse viewpoints are available in the workplace. So the question, does the DEI office and do those efforts result in divisiveness, as some have said? I believe that that is a choice, not an outcome. I suggest that this is an opportunity to which we can say yes, an opportunity to come together around creating a thriving community. Some people may think that when people of color advance in opportunity, status, wealth, and power, that white people will lose. But it's not a zero-sum game. It is well documented that a diverse community is a thriving community. Creating a space where people of color, women, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and other populations can thrive will also help our county to thrive. The growth and prosperity that results will create more resources to support the things that everyone wants: good roads, well-funded schools, quality health care, a living wage, and more. I'm asking you today to please support the DEI office so that Ottawa County can truly be a place where everyone belongs and everyone thrives. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ruth. Anyone else?
My name is Chris Butkus. I have 4 kids in Allendale schools. We all know by now that this virus, experimental vaccine, and lying to us about the inexpensive medicines we do have to cure this virus were all a means to control us and put more money in certain pockets. In my opinion, it was all a way to keep our minds off of the huge election fraud that corrupt people committed last November. Our government, big businesses, our doctors, mainstream media, they all have tried to control us. But when you do the research, there's a much bigger group of corrupt people who are above all of them, controlling every move. Everyone needs to know this. So now, after 16 months of an emergency, Governor Whitmer is ending all COVID restrictions. Kids can play with all of their friends all summer, go places with their extended families, no masks or testing. But come September, now we got to keep our kids safe by testing the unvaccinated 2 times a week and possibly testing for the flu. This means that kids would be tested 84 times throughout the year. And once again, testing our healthy athletes, this is insane. If they're sick, they'll stay home. Yesterday, I read that masks, again, are seriously recommended in many situations, and that vaccinated people shouldn't hang around unvaccinated people. Shouldn't it be the other way around with the spike proteins that are shed from the vaccinated? What kind of a roller coaster are we on? We do not want these antigen tests in our schools. Do not accept this COVID relief money. The health departments are only recommending all of this, and they have no power. Don't let them make decisions for you. And we know that they and the CDC have been getting their advice from Dr. Fauci, who certainly has lost his credibility. Injuries and deaths among people taking the vaccines keep rising weekly, and they say only 1% are even reported. And I will tell you this, if the manufacturers of these vaccines cannot be held responsible, and your schools are going to continue pushing these vaccines in any way, someone or many someones are going to be held responsible. So we're asking once again to stop any and all mandates at the school this coming fall. Get rid of these new tests, which I just read this afternoon are being recalled for serious health risks. And let the parents handle their kids' health care. We don't need more healthcare workers. We are going to keep fighting for the kids because there's more serious business to take up with you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Emily Underhill from Allendale. I come here today not to provide this board with more research. We've already done that. I come here today to first question what is really going on. Why is the state planning to test this fall if everything lifted today? If we can break for a few months, we are no longer in a pandemic. And I also come here to speak to those parents who are still trapped in the false narrative that is keeping them in a state of not just fear, but in a state of phobia. And if they've been scared for a year and a half, the fear doesn't just go away overnight. As I said when I first spoke here a month ago, I was that parent. I am a rule follower, and to the best of my ability, I try to always do what is right. Last year, I had put all of my trust and faith into everything that was being told to me, everything that was being reported by the local news stations, the national news stations. I did exactly as I was told and followed every order that I was given. I was loyal to that narrative because I thought that was what was going to keep my family safe. As I already stated, I finally woke up, and I truly believe that every one of us have our own timeline of when we will wake up and see what's really going on. So to that parent in the grocery store who may or may not have gotten their vaccine, to that parent who is still wearing their mask and making sure their children are too, to that parent who doesn't like doing any of this, but truly believes they are doing what is right by following these mandates. I don't have any negative feelings towards you, but I am eager to sit down and have a conversation with you because the truth is, you don't know what you don't know. What would I tell them? If I was able to have a conversation with that parent, well, I would start off by not telling them anything at all. I would let them talk. If they truly are still scared of this virus, I'm sure that parent has a lot of anxiety, and being able to tell someone about it without having fear thrown right back in their face would give them a sense of relief, a real sense of comfort. At least that's what I would hope. I would ask them questions and I would listen to their answers. In this opportunity, my goal would only be to provide all the information and all the research that has been done so that they can make the decision to what they want to do with it. You see, this group of parents behind me, we aren't forcing or coercing our opinions onto anyone. It's the exact opposite. We are all about parents having the choice to make the best decisions for their family. And that is one of the many things I would want to highlight when speaking to this parent. These orders coming from our government aren't giving you the choice. They are coercing you to do what they say. Never in history has a virus been so politicized and so wrapped up in such propaganda. At the end of our conversation, I would let them know that they have so many parents here to support them if they ever needed and wanted it. I had so much more to say today about the state's planning to test or the health department saying that mandates for the vaccine won't be given, but I'm pretty sure we'll be told our child has to still wear a mask as soon as Governor Whitmer says so. But instead, I chose to listen to what God put on my heart.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Else?
Hi, I'm Krista Yetzke from Allendale. The last part of the Pledge of Allegiance is so powerful. One nation, under God, with liberty, or indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How are you applying that to what is going on in the schools? I want to talk about those words in regard to two areas, DEI and the potential dual treatment of students this fall. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It sounds nice, but when you look deeper into it, it is critical race theory. It is Marxism. Let's look at the word diversity. The prefix DI, means two or separate. DEI teaches there's always an oppressor and an oppressed. DEI separates children by gender, by race, and sexual orientation. I don't want my son told that because he's a white male, he's automatically to be shamed as an oppressor, and his Hispanic friend is oppressed with no way out. Not only is that training our kids that skin color determines their lot in life, it's divisive, the total opposite of indivisible. Equity is not equal opportunity. It's rigging the system to achieve equal outcome. Is that justice for the child who puts an extra effort and then to be held back so that he has equal achievement to the child putting in little effort? Inclusion is giving voice to some oppressed groups while canceling the voice of the oppressor groups. This leads to segregation and more division. None of this teaches our kids to come together as one nation, one race, American. As for the vaccine issue, if no one stands up to what the governor is suggesting for schools this fall, more division will happen. If kids are treated differently according to whether or not they have the experimental vaccine, that's creating two classes of citizen, which is like our dark repeat of history. Where is liberty and justice for all with children whose parents are not willing to subject them to a government experiment and are required to put swabs soaked with toxic chemicals into their noses twice a week? That is not reasonable, and that's not low risk. Schools are not medical facilities, nor are they authoritarians on morality. Health and morality are the responsibility of the parents. One nation under God. If schools want to teach the kids something that builds moral character, teach them you love your neighbor as yourself. You treat others as you would want them to treat you. Otherwise, schools should focus on math, science, reading, and to love our country and respect our flag. That's what the taxpayers pay them to do. Please uphold your pledge of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice, and for all, and keep DEI and dual treatment out of our schools. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Jessie. I am actually a resident of Kenwood, Michigan, so I'm not quite sure if that disqualifies me from speaking.
Where are you from?
Kenwood?
We just need your name and address for
Okay.
the public record.
All right. First off, I want to say by starting off who I am. I am a past educator. I am a current public administration student pursuing my master's degree. And above all, I am an openly gay woman. I am also currently an intern at Ottawa County, and I just want to share with you that this is the first and the only place that I have ever been able to be fully myself at work. I think the woman that spoke before me did a great job at outlining some of the economic benefits of inclusion. So instead, I want to try to humanize this conversation a little bit and give you my perspective of what it's like to not have an inclusive community. I have always navigated through the world with a hesitancy to be fully myself. And a lot of people in this world, I understand, don't support who I am or the choices that I make in life. I could have just told you all that I am a past educator and a student, but adding the fact that I am a gay woman really overshadows a lot of the accomplishments I've had in life and closes a lot of doors, whether that be in the form of job opportunities, where I'm allowed to practice my faith, where I'm allowed to get married, or if I'm allowed to adopt children. Just being openly gay defines so many things in my life. And I'm telling you this because this is the same story for people depending on what box they check for race or gender or citizenship, whatever we identify with. And many of us who don't fit that idea of some individuals' norms are often judged by the way we identify and not the content of our character or our moral integrity. Cultures are such a huge part of belonging, and I really never knew what it felt like to belong before Ottawa County. I thought a job was just something that you checked in at 9 and checked out at 5 and did it all again the next day. But here, I feel supported and I feel valued and validated by my counterparts. And this may seem simple, but this is something I've never had before. And I think I can speak for a number of other county employees when I say that this is a direct result from the DEI office. Because when I first came here, I saw that office, and not only was that a symbol to say I'm safe here, but the work that they're doing throughout the community is exceptional, and it makes me motivated to support it and come up here and speak. And at no part did I say critical race theory in any of that. I just hope that some of you resonate with the fact that this is a story of somebody that came here and wants to stay here because of some of the work that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Sylvia Rohde, and I live in Allendale.
Excuse me, what was your name?
Sylvia Rohde.
Okay, thank you.
The Constitution protects the people's rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the right to determine the care of their own children. These rights have been decimated as our leaders have failed to stand up to a tyrannical governor, her state agencies, a heavy-handed health department, and a county attorney who earned the praise of Whitmer's Attorney General for legal pursuit of Libertas Christian School. Perhaps today feels like the COVID crisis is over with the lifting of many mandates, and the blip of people speaking out will die down. But Governor Whitmer continues to signal her intent to control schools and our children's lives through the next school year. According to Breitbart, MDHHS told schools last week they plan to continue testing students for the coronavirus and will use funds received from the federal government for new whole-of-child approaches. Dr. Bagdasarian said weekly testing is currently recommended for unvaccinated students, and it is required for unvaccinated student athletes. She indicated that would continue despite Whitmer lifting the coronavirus emergency order, and the state is going to be relying on public health guidance and informing people about what best practices are, and will provide materials to school districts about why testing is important. As Lisa said, MDHHS intends to place 500 health resource advocates in Michigan schools, instituting testing twice a week for unvaccinated students and testing athletes weekly through the next school year. Districts will be enticed to participate by providing care for the whole child with health resource advocates. Care for the whole child should start with the end of constant COVID measures for the 0 to 19 age group, which has seen 0 COVID deaths. There's no excuse for the continued bullying of students and deprivation of their rights, which is what has driven the mental health crisis in the first place. We do not want government caring for the whole child. That is the responsibility of parents. Government has done enough harm already. 2 Nevada counties are showing county commissioners how to uphold their oath to the Constitution. You simply do not enforce unconstitutional orders or recommendations. You do not fund unconstitutional programs. So we again ask you to pass the resolution to restore freedom. Please commit to restraining the health department from pressuring schools to implement dual treatment of students and athletes with testing, masking, distancing, and quarantines based on vaccination status, and to not push such measures elsewhere in our county. If you do not desire to courageously lead in difficult times, please step aside so those with constitutional courage can lead us. Finally, please do not use our tax dollars, including the $57 million in federal COVID funds, to promote critical race theory and other progressive ideologies in our county. Perhaps those funds could be distributed to families now needing alternative schooling options next school year. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Is there any on Zoom or no?
Just one more, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Justin Roebuck, 27 Wall Street in Zeeland, Michigan. I've never done this before, so I thought long and hard before doing it. Never given public comment here to this board. But I just kind of want to recognize, because today feels like a little bit of a watershed moment with a lot of our restrictions being lifted, and the reason for that being the health of our community. You know, we may not agree with everything the public health has had to enforce over the past year and a half, but man, am I proud of those guys. I have seen firsthand for, you know, the 13 years that I've worked here. I've worked a lot with public health outside of the past 15 months. And I will tell you, they're the real deal. Not just Lisa Stefanowski, Dr. Heidel, Christina, the people that you see, you know, the faces that you see, but their staff. I have 38 staff that report to me in my day job. I'm the county clerk, in case you're wondering. And I know how hard our staff works. And I'm just really, really proud to stand here as someone within the community who answers to the community, and to tell you, thank you for hiring a great public health staff. They have worked many long hours, taken many phone calls, responded to many concerns from many, many residents. And I just want to thank them for that. And I think that it shouldn't go unacknowledged today, because for a long time, we've been the healthiest county in Michigan, not just over the past couple of years, right? As we kind of bounce back and forth between the top one or two. And I think that in part, that is due to the hard work of our health department. So as a resident, 27 Wall Street, Zeeland, Michigan, I'm thanking you guys, and I'm thanking public health.
Thanks, Justin. In a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. Support. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Thanks.
We did.